right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our training tonight. This is Assistive Technology Tools for College, and we'll be covering an overview of tools that will help individuals who are transitioning or already transitioned beyond high school. So they'll be most relevant for the ages of maybe middle school or older middle school through college. And PHP, we support a wide variety of disabilities. And this particular webinar is part of our Connections California series. So check our website for all the different supports and services. And we have a lot of great information you can access 24 hours a day on our website, including our e-packets and e-learning. And if you have questions you want to hear back from an education specialist or a resource specialist or AT specialist, you can email us and we'll have the information on our last slide today. Okay, let's look over our learning objectives for today. We're going to increase your understanding of assistive technology, often referred to as simply AT, and how AT can help a student who is transitioning to college or is in college. We're going to increase knowledge of AT tools, services, and resources, as well as understand how to initiate the discussion of AT tools with school teams if you're in that stage. Okay, so our training today will be broken down into these 4 segments. So let's take a quick look at transition, just the big picture. What are we looking at and what do we mean when we say transition? Because people say transition when they're transitioning from, preschool to kindergarten and kindergarten to, the bigger campus of the elementary school and transitioning then to the middle school and transitioning to the high school. Well, in the official definition in IDEA, which is the special ed laws that guide this process, the definition of transition is specific to like planning for life after high school. All right, what comes next? And so it can consist of setting goals for that time after high school. The planning stages typically start around 14 or 15 because the plan has to be in place by the time the person who is on an IEP turns 16 years old. And for IEP students, again, they should be developing and reviewing the summary of performance that senior year. So they know, like, where are we leaving off and what are the baseline skills as this individual launches into their next phase of life. And what does this transition planning do? Well, there's a lot of different things that the team could be covering, including, again, the goals and talking about the needs of the individual, making preparation for any work opportunities or college plans, whether it's typical college or a modified type of college experience. And then also this type of preparation, it makes it more likely that the individual will learn advocacy skills, as well as learn how to describe their disability as what we call disability disclosure, because once you get to college, you'll need to be able to do that to tap into the next level of supports there. And some examples of what your team might additionally be doing is they might administer a self-determination assessment. And that essentially takes a picture of what are the life skills and other types of skills that the individual has that they will be taking with them into this next stage. And so they're going to figure out decision-making, problem-solving, self-awareness, self-advocacy, goal-setting, planning. Are they able to learn from mistakes? What kind of risk taker are they? And so here are a couple links to 2 types of self-determination assessment tools if it's something that you're looking for. So they'll be there once you get your PDF. And then your team might also discuss and explore options, like what are some additional options? Perhaps they don't want to pursue something academic, they want to learn a trade or something else. So the team, knowing that the background and the needs of the child, will discuss and explore those options. And if college is in the mix, then research those college. And then develop goals around how do we help the individual get to those aspirations. And one other piece is to explore assistive technology. And so that is what we will be looking at as a big focus today. So let's take a look at what is assistive technology. What is AT? Well, it can span this entire continuum from anything from no tech, no technology at all, which would include just strategies and supports. Could be something that's low tech, like something that is printed or picture icons, things with Velcro attached to it, printed out calendars. So there's no electronics at all in something that's low tech. Something that might be a simple technology and battery operated might qualify as a mid-tech item. There are some of these communication boards, which probably isn't something any of you would be using at this point. But there's some other mid-tech things that you might use. But look at the high-tech options. A high-tech is probably at your college-bound stage, is probably where you're really looking to figure out, are there some good tools that could help me? Are there apps? Are there extensions? Are there little special gadgety things that I could be using to help me be a more effective learner? And will it work with my style of learning? Okay. So that's that continuum. So let's further delve into what assistive technology is, besides just that continuum of device type. Let's look at the exact definition according to the federal government. It's any type of piece of equipment or product system. It can be acquired commercially, off the shelf, can be modified, it can be customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of a child with a disability. Now, child is loosely, it can be an adult child as well. This term does not include a medical device that is surgically implanted or the replacement of that device. So like a cochlear implant would not count as an assistive technology device. The other piece of the AT definition is that it also includes the service. So it's any service that directly assists an individual with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. So this next slide is going to dive into all these little nuances of what a service is. But we don't have to read all of it, but essentially look at the keywords. The keywords are, it's the evaluation, right, of the child in the customary environment. How is the AT acquired or selected, designed, fitted, maintained, repaired? The coordination of the implementation among the therapeutic environments, the therapists themselves, coordinating the different interventions or services along with that AT, and any technical assistance being provided to the student, parents, professionals, and otherwise working with the student. Okay, so when we say assistive technology, we're always implying we're including the AT service with the device itself. So why assistive technology during transition? Well, it can help in a lot of different areas. It can help with reading challenges, writing challenges, math, communication issues, computer access, study skills, organization, planning, social skills, anxiety and mental health, as well as we have AT tool options for disability disclosure. And other benefits as well of using AT is we have all these side benefits that could happen with greater success in learning. Access to the learning is improved. We are addressing a learning gap, greater engagement, increased confidence, increased independence, improved interaction with peers, that we are managing anxiety, and overall just having greater success. So those are other benefits of proper AT implementation. So if you're still in a classroom environment, you might see that all students have access to a wide variety of things to help them with their learning, between the computers, and they have word processing built in. Maybe there's a set of reading rulers on the front that everybody or anyone can grab. There are apps preloaded on the Chromebooks that all students have access to, and even a set of headsets. So those types of items would fall under instructional or educational technology. And what makes it assistive technology is when it's written into a plan and becomes part of what the school is required to provide so that the child can learn or have equal access to their learning to the same degree as their non-disabled peers. And so it might include some of the things that were already available to all students, but it also might include some things that are unique to being assigned to them because of their unique educational needs, as is explored by appropriate assessments. Okay. All right, and this takes us to the next exciting section, and it's the biggest section of our night tonight. So AT, it can be, again, just reviewing, no tech or low tech, and it can include strategies and support, address sensory needs. It can enhance multi-sensory learning, and so no or low tech items. This is just an array of them as compared to the high-tech options. And the high-tech options, we see primarily the trend is to develop them being more web-based as extensions. And sometimes it will also have an application app that you download as well. And if you're using a tablet, of course, you're going to download it as an app. And less commonly, we're finding things as software, and most of these are getting phased out. Everything is becoming kind of this, web-based platform. Even the apps that you might see that a computer wants to download to your desktop, it's just a kind of a portal platform to a web-based type of extension or app. Okay. And so with that high-tech options, you'll find sometimes very basic features, and some will have many features. So depending on the level of complexity that a student is looking for, sometimes easier is better. So just because one item has all the bells and whistles doesn't mean it's going to be the right fit for that child or that student, because the child can use support in all those areas. Sometimes it's just too much and they prefer a much simpler, little quick and easy, less complicated option. All right, another thing to be aware of as the child is moving up from grade to grade and eventually to the college level, if that is their goal, then reading will become harder at every higher level. That's just a reality. If your aim is to go to college and take regular classes, you have to do everything you can to prepare yourself to become somebody who can process information from more complex sources. So like you'll be asked to read journal articles, scholarly magazines, technical books, things like that. So you'll need to be prepared for that. And there are many good strategies for how to tackle this type of higher level reading. So it's not like you just have to magically be better one day. You can look up some strategies. How can I read these so that I have a better chance of understanding what I'm reading and know how to process it? And so some colleges have very good resources on their website, while other colleges don't. And I think they kind of defer to those larger, more established institutions to provide those resources that all students can access. And so you'll see the two that I have here. I think one is I think they're both from East Coast schools. So you can click on them when you get the PDF. And I'm not going to talk about how to get into colleges. And we will be having a presentation on March 30th by Marcy Schwartz. She specifically helps students with learning disabilities to help them prepare for getting into colleges. She also is a counselor for helping them to apply to colleges. So she's extremely skilled and experienced in that topic. So look for that on our PHP calendar on March 30th with Marcy Schwartz. Okay. All right. So let's start getting into the different categories of AT that's going to support learning. We'll start with just reading because reading is so fundamental, and we're starting with low-tech options. So if eye tracking, if you have dyslexia or visual processing difficulties, you might consider having a low-tech option just to help ease some of the burden off your eyes. So sometimes people find that using this colored tape, it's called highlighting tape. Sometimes knitters will use it so they can easily, shift their eyes away from their project and back to their book, and then back to the project and back to the book, and easily find where they left off, which is similar to what students do, shifting their gaze from writing some notes and then back to the book and then back to the notes. You can adopt a color scheme with a different colored tape that you buy to highlight topic sentences or keywords or important names. So if you're still using a paper book, the highlighting tape can be really valuable to do that with. Some people use color overlays to change the contrast between the font color and the background color. And so some individuals will find that there's some benefit to changing the background color with an overlay, while other students find there's no significant difference for them. So it's up to you to try to see what works for you. If sometimes seeing things bigger helps, you can use a page magnifier. There are also magnifying bars, so which would be kind of like a ruler shape, but it's curved on top to magnify just a few lines at a time. So you could do that as well. And then reading guides. Reading guides help by blocking out some of the space around the word that you are trying to track and decode with your eyes. So you can try making one of these very easily with a little bit of cardboard or construction paper. Don't be afraid to try any of these ideas and make it yourself. Remember, AT doesn't have to be bought from a specific vendor. You can certainly make it yourself. Okay, some other reading supports include just playing around with the fonts. Obviously, some fonts are much easier to read than other fonts. And so if you can receive material from your school or instructors in a font that is easier for you to read, if being able to decode words is challenging because of, and further complicated by the font, then you can certainly address that in your IEP teams or ask you for a team meeting with your school teams and see if that can be addressed. Talk about color options, the contrast again, which color contrast is easier on the eye and aids the eye tracking and reading. color background similarly. Highlighting, that can certainly be something that helps as well. And adjusting the size of the print and the spacing between words. And we'll talk about that a little bit later about what types of tools can be used to adjust the width of the words and size of the words kind of on the fly as you're reading some digital text. All right, so that leads us to some of the built-in tools for reading. And this is specifically text-to-speech. It might be referred to as TTS as an abbreviation, or read aloud on some other devices, or like a audio voice or digitized voice. You might see it referred to in a variety of ways, but generically it's referred to as text-to-speech or read aloud. And you might see these kind of generic universal icons to activate that feature. And more common, the big players in the game developing the software for word processing and such are building it into either their operating systems, in the computer, phone, and tablets. They're building it into applications, such as Google has built it into Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And Microsoft has built it into their 365 product, Word, PowerPoint, and Lens, and some others as well. In the browsers, you might find it in Safari. Look for the speech setting and then the start speaking. Chrome, it's called the Chrome box. They have an extension as well that you could download in their browser, and it's called the Screen Reader. Edge has their product. Edge is the browser from Microsoft, and their tool is called Immersive Reader. And their tools are quite robust, and we'll talk about that shortly too. All right, so this is just an example of highlighting and pointing out the importance of highlighting. So highlighting can, in some software, it can be dual highlighting like this example, or it could just be single highlighting. So it would just highlight one section of text as you go. And then if it's reading aloud for you, then the segment that is being highlighted will track along with the read aloud function. And it allows the user's eyes to track the words easier. But the dual highlighting does have the additional benefit with the exact word being additionally highlighted a different color so that you can see exactly which word is being spoken. So let's take a look at this product, which shows the Immersive Reader. It's reading it aloud, and this is in a math scenario. So this is in the OneNote, and there's a math problem in there, and the student has clicked to turn on the Immersive Reader and then click the play button, and then it's reading it aloud to the student. So that's just an example of what you might expect. So earlier we mentioned that there can be extensions, apps, or software. And for some of the more comprehensive offerings, these are some of the vendors that produce a product that have a wide array of tools built into their reading or writing support. So these all have reading supports built in. Some of them also have writing supports as well. Some that are more basic, just a read aloud function, maybe with single or double highlighting, are these. Most of these are free on the basic side, but on the comprehensive side, most of these start with the free trial, but you have to pay at some point. I think though Snap and Read has a smaller toolbar that you can after the free trial's over, you can still have the read aloud, but it's a very basic read aloud. And so it switches from after the free trial, or if you're not subscribing, Snap and Read would then be a basic option as a free reading tool.
Diana?
Yeah.
I have
Hey,
here
Brenda.
a question.
Mhm.
I think it's for clarifying to this mom. She said, so if a student has difficulty with reading, providing a Word document for them of the text would help them because they could use TTS to have the document be read to them?
Yes, that's true. Especially if reading is a challenge, and if they're on an IEP and the team knows that it's a challenge, it can certainly be a consideration to use a text-to-speech tool. And part of the implementation of the AT would include the services of providing the student with digitized text so that they could use the text-to-speech tool.
And I have another one that says that these tools track the reader progress, just like a suggestion to improve skills further.
Right. So that's a great question. And parents are always asking this. It's one of those things where, the child or the individual will always have this area of weakness. But at some point, when is it okay to just let them process the information instead of forcing them to with the troublesome decoding process, right? If it's just the decoding that's interfering with their ability to think, get the information so that they can think deeply and think analytically and participate in some critical discussions with their peers, then giving them a compensatory option of receiving the information through audio source has not proven to be detrimental. I mean, it's been totally fine. Even research shows that it doesn't have any negative effects on the learner overall as an individual by not forcing them to develop this, so-called decoding skill that everybody else seems to magically just pick up. But so it's one of those things, just like if somebody had difficulty gripping a pencil because they had muscle weakness or motor challenges, how long are we going to force them to work on their grip to do handwriting before we say, what, typing is just fine? Once you get old enough, everybody types. Who cares what your signature looks like? Who cares what your cursive looks like? Because typing is just fine. And so that's another example of a compensatory skill. So the goal is to create learners. And how important is the decoding process really in the overall big picture of learning? And it has been proven that it is okay and it's totally acceptable to allow the student to use a compensatory strategy and not worry so much on the decoding aspects for a child, for example, with dyslexia or visual processing difficulties. Okay. All right. I see a quick question that pertains to the Snap and Read, but so the tools, these are all high-tech tools, and they can only help if you have an actual book, like a three-dimensional book. You can take a picture of the page, but if you had 20 pages to read, that's a lot of pictures to take. And then you would use this PDF screenshot optical character recognition software that could be built in, or it could be a standalone product. And it then could OCR all the words and then read it aloud. So Microsoft Lens is a very efficient way to test that out if you would like to take a look at that. But Snap and Read is not quite there yet. Yeah. They do have an OCR tool, but it's not quite there yet with taking a picture of a three-dimensional book. Okay. Okay, I'm going to finish moving through the reading tools. And then we also we'll talk about writing tools and all of that. So keep putting your questions there, and Brenda is going to save them for me, and we're going to get through them. Okay. All right. So this is the read and write tool. So the one that we were talking about earlier, and this is what the full toolbar can look like. If you clicked on the settings, you could cull this down and reduce the comprehensiveness. You can say, hey, I don't need a highlighting tool. There's too many distracting things up there. I don't want the highlighting tools right now. So you can, under settings, remove them, or maybe you don't want some other ones. So you can simplify the toolbar as you like. It's very quick and easy. But this is all the different tools they have there. So you can have, look things up really easily. It has the dictionaries. It can look at images and do some optical character recognition in a PDF. If, for example, there's an image there and you needed to decode a word or several words that are embedded in the picture, it can do that. You can, play the text and start it from any spot in your text. And this example is a Google Doc. There's some teacher tools here. There's some masking tools here that can kind of gray out some of the other areas, and you have control and slide that visual focus area up and down according to where you want to be reading. These highlighting tools are really great because you can, as you're reading your text, you can be highlighting main ideas in blue, important, names in the magenta, and then yellow maybe is vocabulary, maybe green are dates, and then you could collect all of it, and then it'll port them all into a Google Doc. So that's a really great feature, especially for the high school and college students who are trying to do some research and plan out their writing for complex assignments. That's a really great way to gather and organize information. Okay, let's look at a comparable product by Don Johnston. And to be honest, Read and Write is a text help product, and Don Johnston is, a separate company, but they're merging. And so we'll see what happens to their products after they settle in their merge. So for now, all the products are still available in their current forms. They'll be exciting because they're both wonderful companies. So I'm really excited to see what happens. This is a comparable product, but you see the toolbar that they have is laid out a little differently. This is a browser-based toolbar, so you would see it pop up on the side of your browser window. And then on the left here is the read aloud function. So clicking on that speaker icon causes it to start reading, and the voice quality is very good. This is a simplify function. It also has a translate function, and it also has an optical character recognition. So just like with Snap and Read, you can select a segment of the PDF, and if there are any letters in there, it will get decoded and recognized, and then it can read it aloud. Okay. All right, so those are two comprehensive tools. And again, in that previous slide, I had some basic ones listed, but I'm not going to go through those basic tools. So these are the two kind of comprehensive reading tools that I'm going to go over. And so let's say you decide to free trial one of them. What are you going to read? Well, certainly if you have any PDF from classwork, then you could read any of those with that. But if you wanted to download a novel, you could go to either Learning Ally or Bookshare, so novels and magazines and those types of things can be found on these websites. So they both provide e-text, digital text, and they are similar in that way, that you have to have a documented print disability to access their services. Now, Bookshare, since the pandemic started, they started offering a small subset of their books as openly available to all students. But most of their copyrighted, or all of their copyrighted texts and novels are still under the requirement of the user has to have a print disability to access those. So Learning Ally provides, with a subscription fee, a human narrated audio book. You can also get the e-text. They're shifting almost completely now to their browser-based extension. And you have to use their reader tool, their toolbar through Learning Ally to read their digitized text. So Bookshare is a little different. They have the same membership requirement. Their service is free for eligible individuals and free for that small subset of books for everyone else. Their primary format is the digitized book. They have a very simple toolbar, which has a computerized voice. It's a very limited toolbar, so it's not very thoroughly developed, but it is built into the Bookshare. But you can also, if you're opening Bookshare through your browser, just open up SnapRead or Easy Reader or something like that, and then you can open up your book and have a much higher quality reading tool, read aloud tool. And let's see, so you can access their books through either their Read Now, or you could download the book. So you could download it and put it into, if you had an iPad, put it into your iBooks, or download it into your files and then open it up into with whatever reader app that you have. Okay, so those are two major sources of text if you have a print disability like dyslexia, or if you're, visual impaired. We usually get some questions like, does a child with autism qualify as a print disability? Well, only if they truly have a print disability. Like if a child with autism also has a diagnosis of dyslexia, then yes, they definitely have a print disability. If they have a visual processing disorder, then that is a print disability. But if they if they have autism alone, that does not guarantee eligibility for these programs. Okay, and you can look at their website for more information. All the eligibility requirements are there. Okay, other sources of the e-text, digitized text, is there are open source books and subscription sources. So open ebooks, this is really new. So you can find a lot of books there. Digital Public Library of America, public domain books are books where the copyright has expired. So every January, there's a new set of books that have reached that earmark, like 95 years, and then the copyright is done, and then they can be publicly available to anybody, and anybody can use it without any copyright infringement. Obviously, subscriptions is an option. You can pay for a subscription to eText and get access that way. Libraries can provide eText as well. And then YouTube, if you want to listen to a book. These books, though, are primarily public domain book that they have either uploaded and a digital voice then is reading it in audio, in that video. Okay, audio video. Okay. All right. All right. So moving forward, we're going to move into writing tools next. Okay, yes, and thanks for chiming in. I'm just taking a quick glance in the chat, so I appreciate people chiming in with their comments and knowledge over there. That's perfect. Okay, so writing tools. We'll start with the low-tech tools. We have different types of pencil grips you can put onto your pencils or pens. If the gripping process is a challenge, there are adaptive implements. If shifting the eyes around is problematic, then placing the page closer to so the eyes don't have to shift as much. So this type of page up page holder holds the paper straight up. You can put it right next to the computer screen and help your eyes track better that way. Sometimes having different line paper helps the individual to write whatever it is they're writing. Maybe they have to draw, maybe they have to create a chart or a diagram, but specialized paper can be helpful for that. Slant boards is a positioning aid. So sometimes being able to get your arm supported in the right position can help a person to write more easily, lowering the physical requirements placed on the person by the writing activity in general. And so here are some high-tech solutions available for writing. So if your student is struggling in any of these areas, there are a lot of different AT options that we are going to delve into here. So for writing, one of the go-to things is voice typing. So it's sometimes referred to as dictation, as it's something that has to be practiced because voice typing, as we all know, when you speak into a microphone, there can be a little distortion. And you all probably have experience now that the built-in computer microphone is not nearly the same quality as having an external microphone where the distance from your mouth to the mic is closer and the quality of the microphone is better and is better able to pick up the nuances and pronunciation that the individual is saying. So that's a pro tip to always use an external mic when voice typing. And then also if you're helping somebody to adjust to this, encourage them to not get frustrated, number one, and be patient with the process. And two, practice enunciating. So, and saying all the punctuation. So that takes some adjusting. And so the individual might have to practice their dictation so that whatever software they're using has a better chance of picking up the words more accurately. So for spelling and word prediction, I put them all together here because most of these are fairly built in, right? You can't type a text without it trying to correct you and swapping out your words on you, right? So it's built in and some are better than others. But I think all the companies are trying to constantly improve their algorithms so that they perform better and better. But some non-built in ones are listed here on the left, like Grammarly, Ginger, Virtual Writing Tutor. So all of these have free options or free trials to start. So those are good ones to check out if you're not happy with your current built-in spelling check. Microsoft 365 has their learning tools, and they have good spell checks, as well as Google Suite, Apple products. And then you can always ask your AI device. You're going to say something like, hey, Alexa, how do you spell, polymorphism? And then Alexa will spell it for you. It's great. We've had sometimes at the dinner table, hey, these spell offs. And then on a word that we didn't agree how to spell, we would ask Alexa and she would settle it. So that's been really, really fun, really useful. So take advantage of any AI you have accessible, whether it's built into your phone or external. Okay, and smart word prediction. So smart word prediction is different than what we have built into our phones and tablets and computers. They actually look a lot more closely at the context of our sentences. And in some of them, you can select, now look at the next slide, you can select a very specific dictionary and plug it in, say like, I'm going to be writing an essay about Abraham Lincoln. So you can select the Abraham Lincoln dictionary, and so that it adds to the accuracy of the word prediction. Okay. So this is an example of the CoWriter product. And it had, as you're typing, this is a sentence that's been typing, and this is a drop-down word choice box. And as you are typing letter by letter, these options in the bottom evolve to represent a strong candidate of what you might be intending to be typing. And if you don't want to finish typing your word and you see the word pop up here, then you can just click in that number and the word pops in. If you wanted the program to read the words to you, you could, there's another icon you could click and it would read, or I think you just click the word itself and it would read those aloud for you. But if you wanted to dictate something, then you would click here and it would be able to take your dictation. Okay, and it does take flexible spelling. So it identifies phonetic and inventive spelling. So if you're the type of person where if you're going to type out a word 3 times, you're going to come up with 3 different spellings, then this is the type of intelligent word processing that might fit you. So it can accurately identify inventive or phonetic spelling. So Read and Write is a comparable product. And you remember earlier we said it's both a reading tool and a writing tool. So the writing tools, as you're writing, it operates kind of the same exact way as you saw with the previous CoWriter product. And as you're writing, a word choice box will pop down and you can select the word that you want it to fill in. So this is a newer product that I've come to appreciate, and it's called Spellex. And what I like about this one is it's very geared for the next level of learner, the pre-professional or somebody who's on a professional track or a very high level of academic learning. So it has some very sophisticated vocabulary dictionaries that you can plug in, and then it can draw from those technical dictionaries and plug in the right words for you. So this is both a reading tool and a writing tool. So you can look on the Spellex website to see if it's something that will meet your needs. And again, the built-in learning tools, I really wanted to point out Microsoft's effort to address individuals with dyslexia. So they had a huge campaign where it's essentially like a hackathon, and all these programmers were given this mission to try to come up with all these different tools. And one of the tools ended up evolving into what they've adopted as their Immersive Reader tool set. So it's a set of tools designed with the individual with dyslexia in mind, but it benefits all students, all types of learners can benefit from that type of access to those tools. I know this is really wordy. It's really meant for you to refer back to once you get this PDF in your hands. You can click on this link later and check out the Immersive Reader product. But kudos to Microsoft for their tremendous effort in making their learning tools universally available, following that UDL, Universal Design of Learning model, and making it accessible and available to all people. So of course, you know, other companies, once the bar gets raised, other companies have to, you know, respond. And so, you know, Apple has their set of Apple accessibility. I put the links here for you to click to check out their built-in accessibility supports and how to find it in your settings. And then here for Chrome and Chromebook, it's there for you as well to check out later. AT for writing, organizing and planning. So this is a big piece, right? Once the world gets more complicated with higher demands, higher requirements, being able to organize and plan out life, organize and plan your learning and time, etc., all these things become more and more essential. So it's nice that these mind maps are so universally available now. There's so many great products now. You know, if I could have a list of, you know, 15 of these options for mind maps, I wish I could, but you know, you'll see. Here's just a starting set because, you know, 15 is too many, but these are really good starting points. Kidspiration is more for kind of younger ones, but certainly Inspiration, Mindoma, Lucidchart, MindMap, those are great places to start. They all have a free trial. If you wanted that, or if you wanted to try it out, then take a look at that. And what you can expect is you can expect to help it to guide the visualization of your project, or whether this is your daily activities. You can then plan, you can organize, then write, and if you need to, present your information. So using mind maps is a great tool. There are some wonderful TED Talks about the value of mind mapping. A lot of great YouTubers talking about best practices of mind mapping, how to do it right. There's a lot of controversy about what right mind mapping looks like. So take a look at that and then pick a method that seems to work for you. But I think it's great, especially we find that individuals with dyslexia tend to think more three-dimensionally and creatively. A lot of people do. And as we write notes in a linear sense, it doesn't allow for those more creative individuals to really process information well when that's the only form that note-taking is being accepted in the classroom. So if one needs to think more creatively or take notes differently, then it could be something you talk to your school teams, talk to whomever you're trying to work with to consider using mind maps and accepting mind maps as a student product. Okay, some additional organizing and planning tools are some things that I know you have around and you've been using, but also reinforcing that there are different strategies you can be employing with these different calendars, digital calendars, or the home assistants. So, for example, is there a strategy of where and when a person should be calendaring? Are they developing habits for setting the alarms and alerts or the pop-ups, right? Because too many pop-ups and alerts just cause you to ignore them. So what's the just right amount? That's not too much, not too little, but it's just right for keeping someone on track. And then do we need to train the person? How many times a day do we need to check the calendar? What types of things can they expect to go in the calendar? Do they practice any strategies like calendar blocking or calendar sharing? Those types of things. So strategies paired with this are really important and creating habits around that. And the personal assistant, if typing is too laborious, we can certainly ask our, the HomePod or Alexa or Siri and tell them to, add an appointment in my calendar at, February 2nd at 5 p.m. that says, meet friend at the park. If it's getting down to the wire, you want to make sure you don't arrive late. You say, hey, Alexa, set a countdown timer for 1 hour. Right? Those types of things, those type of habits and strategies employed with the implementation of these types of devices. Now, for the college student, they are often assigned these type of large projects that are hard to wrap your head around how big they are. And so the University of Minnesota, as well as San Jose State, and many other universities, but I really like University of Minnesota's because they have such a great breakdown of their assignments. So what you do is, and anyone can use it. You don't have to be a student at the university to use either of these tools. So you go onto the website, you click what type of project it is, research paper, speech, or lab report, right? Those can be pretty big and a lot more requirements than what was required at the high school level. So then you would plug in the start date, and maybe you've been given 4 weeks to complete this. So you would type, 4 weeks from the start date and then calculate. And then after you hit the calculate button, it will break down all these descriptions of what you need to get done for your type of project. And it'll break it down by dates. So if you can print that out or plug those dates into your calendar and follow it, commit to following that, then guarantee yourself you'll get everything that you need to have done with all the steps. So how great of a tool is that? Because not all the professors are really good at telling you all the little, steps or sub-steps or details of those sub-steps, what they expect you to do. But this tool will tell you exactly what types of things you should do in that step. Okay. So note-taking is also a big piece. It ramps up in high school and even more in the college setting. So one typical option that colleges offer is a peer note taker. So if somebody has challenges with the writing aspect of taking notes or listening and writing notes, then they can employ peer note takers. They'll get your schedule and make sure there's one assigned in each one of your classes. The peer note takers drop off the notes at the student disabilities office, and then the student who needs them will go and pick those up. So that's the way that has operated for years and years. But there are newer independent options, right? Because that peer note taker is extremely passive. It's a very dependent option. So if you wanted a more independent option, there are some high-tech ways of audio recording. Colleges are more open-minded about this as opposed to the high schools. High schools are more resistant to that type of audio recording. So there are LiveScribe pens, there's Sonocent and Glean, Notability, GoodNotes, and OneNote. Those are all options that have a built-in recording option. Okay. And so some other things to remember for note-taking is that use appropriate strategies and routines. So explore a system of notation to mark special or important things. There have been a lot of research around how much learning gets lost from the memory over time. And so the general recommendation is to review the notes within 48 hours, transcribing notes into a study sheet or mind map, abbreviations while note-taking, so you don't have to write out fully every single word that you're trying to write out, use abbreviated words, have regular review sessions, consider things like the Pomodoro method, and use use a pen. They say use a pen as opposed to typing because it engages a different part of the brain. But obviously that's a personal choice. So earlier we mentioned the LiveScribe pen. It is an actual real pen. We don't talk about it much today, but if you just do a quick search online, you'll see what it is. But you can search LiveScribe pen, and it's an actual pen that records. And if you write on special LiveScribe smart paper, then it will transcribe stuff into the directly move your notes into the iPad if you have that type of pen, or it will record the audio, and then wherever you touch on your handwritten notes with the pen, it will replay the notes from that spot of your notes. So it's a very cool pen. All right. Some other accessories you might need for note-taking is a screen protector that adds some resistance. So when you're using a smart pen, usually they have these type of plastic tips, and these plastic tips feel very slippery when you're trying to write on the iPad. So adding a screen protector, specifically the paper-like screen protector, adds texture, and then the writing feels more natural. Digital pencils, there's a whole wide variety of them out there. The Apple Pencil, of course, is available, but that's $89 or $90, and there are some other knockoff ones that are half the price or less. So check out whatever meets your needs. Grips. So some people find that the Apple pencils are a little bit slippery or heavy, and so adding a silicone cover or a grip onto it helps the individual to use it more effectively. And then the mind map template, and adding a strategy to that. And sometimes raised line paper, so you get a little bit more tactile feedback. So let's now look at Math AT. So again, software, apps, and websites primarily. So a lot of, now that everybody's shifted online, I think a lot of high schools and colleges as well are using this Desmos scientific calculator. So that one's probably already being used, but if a student needed to use it in a particular way and always needed it available for certain types of things, and maybe not even all the time in math, but maybe sometimes in science and other classes, then it could be worthwhile adding that into the IEP across learning environments, that it's something that the student can have access to as AT. There aren't too many good AT math options that work well for high levels of math, but Equatio does work really well. And what you can do is you can enter the math formula or function on the left. If you're working on a tablet, you can use a handwriting way, you can use dictation, or you can type it in there, and then it will appear on the right side. And then you could insert math and it would put it right into your Google Doc or your form, whatever you're using. So there are a lot of tutorials online. So any one of these names of the companies or products that you're interested in, you can just type it into YouTube and see a tutorial about how to use it. So that's great. So I think a lot of high schools and maybe younger are using these types of online platforms to supplement their content learning. And they're great. They have a lot of simulated experiments and manipulatives there. So it's a great option for the online environment or just as a supplement or enrichment. So if your school isn't providing it and you're looking for some enrichment, then these might be some good options for you. So here are some other options for math. There's Math Talk, so it's speech recognition for math. Math Share, this is still being developed, so it's not quite yet at the finished level, but it's still there for you to tinker with if you'd like to do that. And obviously specialized calculators, we had an image of that earlier. GeoBra is similar for the online graphing and 3D imaging. There's a whole array of fraction calculators and talking scientific calculators. And then for, if you needed to scan a problem and import it, then there's a couple of options where you could, digitize it with either Math Solver, which is a Microsoft product, or ModMath is more like an on-screen calculator, but it has specialized keypad on it. All right, earlier I mentioned Equatio. So this is just a kind of a closer look at that option. And again, you have the YouTube link down here so you can see how it works specifically. And then, of course, there is a whole array of apps for anything from arithmetic to specialized math paper, calculators, algebra and calculus options, graphing support, money, time, etc. I would say that if you're not sure about how good a quality it is, you could go to bridging apps. Brenda, maybe you could put the website for bridging apps in there. And that's a great place to vet the apps and see what other people have to say about it. So they're all disability specific, but they would certainly have feedback on anything academically oriented there too. Okay, moving on to sensory needs. So sometimes when people are feeling antsy or unable to focus or concentrate, they feel, like they got to move, or, they just can't quiet their mind. Sometimes there's some sort of sensory issue going on. So it can affect a lot of different types of people with an array of, whether you have learning disabilities or ADHD, autism, any anxiety. Of course, the sensory needs and addressing a sensory need can be really beneficial. And of course, if you suspect that you should consult with a professional to determine whether the sensory system may be addressed with any sort of like intervention like these. And they can also provide you with information like, oh yeah, we're sensing that your sensory system is too sensitive or not sensitive enough. And these are the types of interventions that we're recommending. So this is just a wide array of different types of things that people might try or implement according to the direction of their OT or other professionals who know how to make recommendations on this area. Okay. And then for concentration on learning, I wanted to point out that there's a lot of new research about movement and learning and the brain benefits of exercise and things like that. So I put some links there, and here are some strategies for pairing with some AT, timers Timers can be used to remember to move, to give yourself a sensory break, a movement break. There are online workouts. You know, you can do a 5-minute workout, a 8-minute workout, a 12-minute workout. They're all kinds of time breakouts online. So take a look at that to see what works for you. You know, maybe it's just stretching, maybe singing. You know, sometimes that resonance in the body kind of helps the whole body to reset. And then maybe developing new habits with friends, then you will have that type of social support for developing a new habit and intervention for yourself. There are some social skills supports as well. You can certainly boost your ability to have conversations by, you know, getting a set of conversation cards, playing conversation games, preparing yourself for conversations so you don't feel like, oh, I've run out of things to say, or I can't think of a single thing to, you know, talk to these people about. So, you know, that certainly can take practice. And if you had your go-to 10 questions and then your backup 5 questions, then, you know, how much more at ease would you feel going into these social situations? And maybe have a different set of questions for going to a sporting event at the college, or a house party at nighttime, or mixing with people, you know, before or after class. So having a small subset of questions that you have prepared and have rehearsed, that can be beneficial as well. So wherever you can get, you know, social and conversational practice, that would be great. So in the high school and college environment, sometimes people feel that the pressure or feeling like a small piece of a huge environment, or that maybe people don't really see you or recognize you, that can affect how you feel. It can affect your resiliency. And know that no matter what environment you're at, there are resources there. And so the AT I'm sharing with you are different resources you can access, whether on your computer or tablet. But this one really stood out to me, this crisis text line that you can start to this number and just text. Because what could be easier than tapping into a texting support like that, and then having it with you all the time whenever you need. And it's discreet, it's private, and it's accessible. And then so you can find other support at the Student Disability Office and through your advisors. The Student Disability Office, sometimes if you don't know what to say, you can always say, I'm struggling and I don't know what to say. You can just show up at that office and say, I don't know what's going on and I need help. So, my son, who has some social delays, had to do just that. And then he said, I didn't know what to say to them. And I said, well, you could just say, I don't know what to say. And so he tried that. And sure enough, the counselor that he met with right off the bat knew exactly what questions to delve into next with him. And so that was really, I think it was just a golden moment for me. And it was just such an aha moment that I just had to share with you. So looking after mental health is super important. And so, of course, there are different apps, right? That Headspace, I think, has become quite popular. If you have any Apple products, you might have been told it's time to move, it's time to breathe, time to stand, things like that. But that's all part of that self-care, and having those, pop-ups, instead of thinking that it's interrupting you, think it's like, oh, maybe it is a good time to stand up and to stretch or to breathe, do some deep breathing exercises, because that can help you with your anxiety management, There are some chemical changes that happen in the brain when you do deep breathing, when you get exercise, when you practice self-care, when you have a safe place to talk about your feelings, and that improves your self-esteem. It all is interconnected. Meditation exercise are proven to be tremendously beneficial. It's something I'm working on improving as well. Relaxation exercise, kind of similar but different. Health tracking, a lot of these smartphones and tablet devices, computers, they all have these built-in things. And I know the Apple devices have more and more of these health tracking aspects. So it can track your resting heart rate. It can, see how well you're sleeping at night. So if you just want to pick one thing to start tracking, maybe just track your sleep, because that can be really important, especially if you need to concentrate and function well. So generally, mental wellness tracking, there are fitness apps, and all kinds of other things. And so I think it's one of those things that we need to remind ourselves and remind our families that it's okay to not be okay, because it's the human condition that, we're all going to have ups and downs. And so how you manage the downs is going to be extremely defining for a person. Okay, and the last piece of AT is about disclosure. This slide is more for you to understand the difference between self-advocacy and self-determination. Again, if you go to Marcy's training, she's going to cover this a lot, so I'm just going to move on and you can look into that later. But part of getting ready to disclose your disability, perhaps to the Student Disabilities Office, so you can get your AT supports established there, is getting some sort of one-page description for yourself, where it talks about it maybe has a picture of you doing a favorite activity. It has the things that you do well, your strengths, and how to support you. So there are some links here. Everything is linked, and you can get right to these one-page profiles, also called one-page descriptions. And so those could be really useful if you need to approach your teacher, your professor, and say, hey, you know what? I've got this condition. Do you mind if I share this with you? And then in one glance, they can get a good sense of who you are as a student. And then you might even get greater compassion because you shared more openly with you, and building this bridge and this relationship with that teacher or professor opens the door to more conversations about how can they help meet your needs in an appropriate way. Okay. All right, so those are the key tools that I was going to share with you. That was kind of the nuts and bolts of most of it. And I have one more small section at the end here, but we reviewed reading, writing, spelling, note-taking, organization, planning, math, sensory, social skills, as well as mental health and disclosure, AT options. And then we talked about the importance of adding strategies and support with the AT. So I really want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of that. And then just looking at the AT consideration, just the briefest of snapshots here, that remember the education plans in the high school is guided by IDEA for children on the IEP. If you didn't qualify for IEP, then you might have a 504 plan that is covered under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And that 504 plan the 504 plan for that student can also have AT written in as a reasonable accommodation. So if you're at a private school, private schools can handle it however their policies deem. So you would just have to work with your private school. So IEPs don't translate into the private schools, but you could have a service plan if you're public school and you have agreed upon that type of plan being pushed into the private school. So that would be a different conversation. Okay, so the AT consideration conversation with your team, I've tried to come up with a, this is my simplified version, but the AT consideration essentially has 4 outcomes, right? You talk about it. Does a student need AT? One could be, nope, there's no need. We all agree that's no. It could be, yes, the AT is already being used and it's going well, so we're going to keep using it. There could be another, yes, but we need to adjust it or change it a little bit, right? Maybe explore a different option, but we know what to use. Or it could be, yes, but we think it might be yes, but we're not really sure. So we're going to say we don't know. And we need to get more information about AT and other options. Then they would explore finding another staff or a third party to attend a meeting, or they might refer for an assessment at that point. And then once everything is kind of looked at, if AT is determined that it's agreed upon, it gets written into the IEP or the education plan, and goals are written to support it, and it's documented in the forms. So you could try it first with some trial period forms. And on the next slide, I have some sample forms here. So if you want to look at what some AT consideration forms look like, you can find any number of them here. And why are we looking at these from the East Coast and Georgia and Wisconsin and all kinds of other places? It's because AT consideration is not well described in IDEA. And so a lot of grassroots efforts have resulted in these types of forms to guide best practice for schools to follow. And a lot of schools have adopted it. So I think that's great. And you would know which AT is the right one because you had knowledgeable people gathered to talk about the needs of the student and looking at the goals. And a knowledgeable person about AT provided input and recommendations. And that person or others did some research to come up with the options as well. Or the AT assessment provided recommendations. Or there's also an AT consideration resource guide. And that would have been in one of, this one definitely has a really good resource guide. Okay. And so if you're in California, you know that our IEP forms have a special section where it says special factors. And here you can write down, does the student require assistive technology, devices, and or services? Click the box yes or no. There are different SELPA regions in California might have a different looking form. So here's another sample of a different form that is being used. And so you would just click the right no or yes box under AT and then fill in the explanation there. And you can also write it under goals. You can write it under supports and services. You can write it under all kinds of places. If you need more descriptions in the notes, if it's also supporting accommodations, you would write it there as well. So consideration. So we talked about AT consideration, and on our diagram with the yellow boxes, right? That was considerations. Like at a regular meeting, we're trying to decide, is it something that we need to consider for the child? Yes, no, right? Or we don't know. If it's we don't know, we said that we will look into the assessments. And some common errors. So AT consideration is not just for those with severe disabilities. Some make sure that your team has somebody knowledgeable regarding AT. Make sure your team has a process to collect data. And then ensure that consideration of AT is not just limited to those items that are familiar to team members. The last few slides, I'm going to just click through really quick. We have our SELPA manual for Santa Clara County. It has their adopted AT consideration forms in there. I have some links for our other counties down here if you'd like to check out your SELPA websites there in your procedural handbook. And so your takeaways, I know it's 8 o'clock, and so I want to make sure that if anyone wants to stay late for the Q&A, that we have a little bit of time at the end. So remember, AT is both a device and service. Find the appropriate AT tool to address the functional need of the student and match the AT feature to support that need. Make sure that consideration can be is using a well-defined process and following some frameworks such as the SET tool. Okay, so Brenda, I know we're at that hour and we have a poll to launch. So we really appreciate you filling out this poll. It helps us to know how we've supported you through this training. I'm going to go through some last little bits of resources at PHP here at the end, but feel free to fill out the poll while I'm just going through those last couple slides here. So here we have AT e-packets and e-learning on our website. I have the links there for you. So click on them when you have time. Again, you'll get this PDF. I think Brenda's already dropped it in the chat for you. And other resources here. But again, go to our PHP website to get the most comprehensive list of e-packets there and download however many you need, all of them if you like. Again, we've updated so many, so please, hopefully we have some there that meet your needs. If you need other topics, reach out to me. My email is here, Diana with the H at the end at php.com. If you have general education or IEP questions or questions about community supports in general, you can email us at info@php.com. Check out our e-learning at our website as well. We have archived webinars, trainings, support, information, lots of good things for you there. All right, so it's been my pleasure to be your speaker tonight. I hope I filled your heads with lots of great information, and I welcome you to come check out our other Connections California webinars. We have a whole great series coming to you. The training I was mentioning to you is this one, Marcy Swartz talking about how to prepare for a successful transition to college. So check that out, March 30th, 6:30 p.m. I'll be the host for Marcy Swartz then. Okay, and if you'd like to stay for any questions, I'm going to be available. So Brenda, why don't you start me off?
Yes, okay, so I have a good number of questions here. So I will start by this one. It says, my child is a private school, so he doesn't, oh, I'm sorry, I think you already went through it. Well, I'm going to read that. So he doesn't have an IEP, he doesn't have accommodations. How does this change things?
Right, that's a good question. So when you're in a private school, the private school doesn't have any obligation to provide you with, IEPs. If they've received public funding, then it's arguable that they should. But how do you know? But generally, private schools. They're self-funded. They don't have to follow the IEP process or 504 laws because they're private. But again, you can have the support plan from the public school if you have an assessment through the public school to see if the public school will provide in any support through a support plan, which is not an IEP. It's something a little different. Okay,
thank you. So the next one is at the college level, who provides the AT service? Does this vary from institution to the next, or should there by law be people trained and designated for that purpose?
Right. So at the college level, again, you would go straight to the Student Disabilities Office, and that office goes by many names. So look at what that college calls that program, that office. And then, you have to have a conversation with them. You can schedule a meeting with them. They're usually pretty good to work with. Maybe some better than others, but have a conversation. And if your takeaway from talking to that office is good, then maybe that's a good sign for working with that university. If it's not as good, then maybe that's another kind of sign. So it does vary from institution to institution of what kind of supports they provide. So yeah, you have to talk to that office to find out.
All right, thank you. And there is another one. Are there AT apps, etc., that have speech to text for writing? Or I think you went through it. Is there a software that students use to write math questions, or do students still use paper and pen?
Yeah, I think we covered that in the math section. So there definitely was, there's a whole array. If you're looking for something for higher level math, Equatio was a great one, but I had a whole list of them there. So go back to that slide for math. And then if there's something else different that you're looking for after you've explored those options, then you're welcome to email me. I'll see if we can think of some other things, but there really isn't a great array for math supports out there. I pretty much have all the ones that I thought were reasonable in that list. But check out the e-packet for that as well.
Got it. There is another one. Are there any templates available for someone who needs help with writing?
There are. I probably would need some more questions about that, but there certainly could be. If you search writing templates, there's several that come up. I've done that search for my own kids, so I know there are many out there. There are many types of scaffolding to help them evolve their writing, for them to restructure and edit their writing. So they are definitely out there. If you have trouble finding them, definitely email me.
Okay, and another question. ReadIt and Don Johnson are free?
They have a free trial. I think it was a 30-day free trial, but they're going to merge soon. So I don't know if policies are going to change or what's going to happen. But yeah, you can have a free trial. If you needed a longer trial, I know a lot of these vendors are willing to extend free trials. So let's say you just didn't have time at all over the 2 weeks or 4 weeks to get on the product and really try it, then just ping them. And a lot of times they can extend your free trial.
Okay, the next one is for Bookshare. How do we prove disability? Do they ask for diagnosis paperwork?
Yeah, look on the Bookshare website. They're very clear about what they need from you, like type of paperwork for documenting the diagnosis. So I would check there.
Okay, the next one. Is there a data associated with how students do with social media incorporated into their learning, reading, or writing?
I'm not sure if I understand the full question, but using social media in their reading and writing. Well, I know that a lot of the teachers are implementing the Google Classrooms and using shareable documents. So I have seen a lot of teachers kind of have collaborative projects and essays and presentations using that type of medium. So the student who is working on that type of platform, collaborating with other students, that's not really social media, I know, but it is working with other students. As far as social media for sharing and such, I only know what I see with my kids. I haven't pulled a lot of kids on this, but I know they're using Discord to organize school groups and academic support and stuff like that for each other, asking each other, hey, did you understand the notes today, or things like that? Or I was homesick because, my parents has to quarantine, so I didn't go to school today. What did I miss? So there's a lot of Discord, which is a social media server that I see a lot of students using that now.
All right, thank you. We have just 3 more questions. Somebody asked about if there are some habit builder technology.
Habit builders. Okay. Yeah, there definitely are. I've seen several apps on the phone, but these apps and the AT is only as powerful as a person implementing it. Just because you download the app doesn't mean you're going to instantly develop these new habits that you put in there. So I think sometimes arming yourself with information about best practice for changing habits could be really useful. So I would recommend, like, a top read right now, especially, is Atomic Habits. That's a really well-known book. It's a very respected writer who wrote it. So Atomic Habits, I think, is a good place to start. I am a fan of The Self-Driven Child. I think that also has a lot of guidance for families to understand how to talk, how to phrase our words so that we keep a nice harmonious flow of conversation in the home, right? Because once somebody feels prickled up, they're not likely to want to continue the conversation, and we can't work on personal growth, personal development, habit development, and the like. So I think even more fundamental to reading Atomic Habits might be having parents take a look at how are we communicating with our kids, our adult kids, or approaching adulthood kids, and how might we need to adjust how we express ourselves to them.
Thank you. So the next one is, how do I get assistive technology added to the IEP during high school?
Yeah, so the IEP process requires that assistive technology be considered at every IEP meeting. So if you're meeting with your team, there's a little section in the IEP paperwork that says AT consideration, just like I showed you on the slide. If there's that section in the IEP paperwork. So if you don't meet but annually, then you should at least address it once a year. Yeah.
Thank you. And somebody is asking if you could share. Oh, you are sharing. So yeah, thank you. I think the last question is about if we in parents helping parents have staff that provide AAC consultation or information.
Yeah, right now, if you email me, I'll find out what kind of AT questions you have, AT needs you have. You'll probably start off with a conversation with me because of, you're attending this training. It is presumed that your topics will pertain to this age group. And so I will be likely the person that will address those questions. And so go ahead and just email me, Diana with the H at the end, at php.com.
And I think that's the last question that we have.
Okay, sounds good. I think that's a wrap for us. And I hope to see everybody at a future event.